Thank you, everybody, for joining us back here at the Crypto Companies channel. We have a special double interview for you guys today. So we sit here once again with the co-founder and chief executive officer of the crypto company, Mr. Ron Levy, and also Chris Bennett, who we got an introduction from, the chief learning officer. So, gentlemen, how are you both doing today?
Good. Doing great, Michael. Good to see you again.
Yeah, excellent. Any day we get to hang out and geek out, talk about crypto, blockchain, what's going on, that's a good day. So I'm happy to be here.
Good. Very glad to hear it, gentlemen. And I'm doing pretty well myself. Today, I want to talk about FTX again. I know this has been dominating the news stream for a while, and kind of rightfully so. And there's a whole bunch of stuff still swirling around in the muck. We're kind of waiting for the dust to settle a little bit, but I'm kind of curious, where do we go from here, right? There's a lot of negative press right now, a lot of it, unfortunately, surrounding crypto as a whole. But what's the next steps? What can we do?
I think in order to answer that, we got to reframe a little bit what's going on, at least from my point of view. And what has happened here, obviously, is very significant on countless levels. There's numerous companies that have lost, $5 million to hundreds of millions of dollars. I suggest that there's companies we haven't heard about yet that are in the loss on this thing. So we're going to see the onion sort of peel off for quite a while. And I'm going to guess it won't just be days or weeks, it'll be months. So there's a lot of damage and repair that's going to happen. And just know all that's coming. There's so much to talk about there, but also kind of how we got here. Why is it this important? It's not just a money loss. It's a loss of confidence, right? Because of the industry, Sam Bankman-Fried was the one that put himself out there to our government, to the public, name on stadiums, company name on stadiums. Like, he was really out there. And when this compromise happens, it's a compromise to confidence. And that's a really big subject. But I think it's very important to look at what was compromised. And what's a couple of proud things? First of all, your tax dollars are not going to pay for this. As much as was lost, and this could be sort of record-setting in history, quite honestly, and it's as unfortunate as it is, your tax dollars aren't bailing this one out. Those of us that are involved in crypto know we walk through a door that says enter at your own risk. And that's exactly what happened here. And I think that's a really important distinction. And the other thing is, within the crypto space, you've got, amongst other things, two categories. One is decentralized and the other is centralized. FTX was a centralized exchange. Centralized exchanges rhyme more with traditional business and traditional things that exist that we're all familiar with. Decentralized is the magic of blockchain. It's the magic of that technology that empowers crypto. And even more importantly, it empowers individuals, and I would suggest around the world, to do many things that are critically important. And that didn't fail. The technology did not fail. Nothing decentralized failed. Bitcoin did not fail. These tokens, I guess there's an argument to say they may have. It's a whole other discussion. Certainly FTT token. But in fact, there's arguments saying it reinforced the reasons that blockchain is so important, and by extension, crypto. Not every crypto, but crypto in general. So there's a lot of touch points there. We can go down those roads, but maybe I'll hand it over to you guys and see what your comments are.
Yeah, it's funny working in blockchain education. One of the things I've really been reminded of is it's funny, as you age, you kind of think of yourself as the same age. You wake up every day and you feel like, man, I'm still 25 years old. And then you look in the mirror and you go, who's this old guy looking back at me? But it's very humbling teaching, and you kind of realize that a lot of the things that you just assumed were part of life, you're now teaching people old enough that was never a part of their life. So, in so many of our classes, I like to talk about the parallels between what happened with the original rollout of the internet, the .com era, and the 90s and the 2000s, what's happening with blockchain today. And it's always very humbling to get adult students who go, I don't have any memory of that happened before my time. And so I think sometimes it's easy for us to lose sight, but all of this has happened before. And to kind of, look back on some of those parallels, I'm old enough to remember an age before the .com crash when you just put .com on the end of your name and you showed up with a 3-paragraph business plan and you walked away with hundreds of millions of dollars to go IPO with. The crash really showed us that just throwing money at a technology wasn't the right answer. And after that, that's when we really saw the big pillars of the internet emerge. Google was not there from day one. A lot of these big names that we know in the .com space, they didn't really come around until after the crash. And so I'm weirdly optimistic that this is just a necessary and painful growth step that we are going through, and we're going to emerge out of this better and stronger, and very selfishly to me, obviously, better educated. I think what this really shows is, this space isn't going anywhere, but technology in and of itself isn't enough to fix the most undesirable aspects of human behavior. And so just like anything else, if you're going to wade into these waters, being educated is important. And so I think it really just kind of serves as amplification for the importance of the mission that we're already on.
Yeah, I agree that you touched on a really key point there, and that our problems here are not new. We've been through this many times in all sorts of different facets and different technologies and so on. It's hard to escape any sort of criminal element in anything, but I will say that the blockchain really does shine as something that could have helped us a lot. And going, Ron, to what you said about trust, utilizing decentralized platforms helps with that by making it a largely trustless thing. Of course, people need to be taught these things. They need evangelized the benefits of using decentralized platforms. And there's a lot of very fundamental tidbits of wisdom that could have helped a lot of people in this regard. One being the not your keys, not your crypto kind of mindset, and where if you're not actively your own custodian, then someone else is technically in charge, and it isn't your fault if things go wrong. It's theirs, but it's still gone, and you need to kind of understand that to some degree. But I guess wrapping things back to where the positive light of where we could be going from here, hard lessons learned. Unfortunately, human nature remains the same, no matter what kind of techno gizmos we have in our nature. So I guess in 2023, do you think we're going to have regulatory things cinching in too much, or do you think maybe there's a positive light in here next year, or is this going to be a longer sledge, so to speak? Are we going to be sludging through this for a while?
On the regulatory side, there's going to be a lot that's going to be happening. It's going to be interesting to watch it all unfold. I believe that we are in an industry that moves incredibly fast, and I believe that government typically moves very slow. So those things haven't changed. So now there's going to be pressure on the government to do things, but it's going to be important that they get those things right. And only time will tell if that's the case. This failure here was the same failure that you might have had at, Enron and other companies. And ironically, the way it got discovered, and I can't guarantee I'm right about this, but the point is still very valid, is the Sunday is when I found out about it. And when it happened, I got an instant text and something was going on. From what I know, I believe it was CZ from Binance went online on the blockchain and started counting FTT tokens. Why is that an important piece of information? Because the blockchain is transparent, and he was able to count the FTT tokens that stayed with Alameda and the FTT tokens that stayed with FTX, and then look at the FTT contract. All of this is where you got programmable trust. All of this you can see on the blockchain. Nobody can fib about that. And when he added them up, he saw that FTX and FTT totaled, in rough numbers, 150% of what the original contract said. And that knowledge is what started peeling the onion away. And that is the strength of blockchain. Now, what traditional things failed? You had billions of dollars come in from seasoned professionals, huge companies that you think have all these diligence analysts that really do a deep dive, but do know they got caught up in the euphoria too. Because anybody that did do the deep dive on their books, which is not on the blockchain, That's the issue. They're private, but as you're investing a lot of money into a company, you typically can look at their books and look at it. They either didn't look or they missed it. And once one huge fund does that, others just follow, assuming that diligence.
Yeah.
Beyond that, you have individuals. It trickles all the way down to individuals that are holding, it might be small dollars to most people, but it might be significant to them that end up losing. And I would point blame all the way up and down that channel, all the way to what you said, Michael, not your keys, not your crypto. Know that. I know you want to stake it and you want to make an interest. When you do that, look who you're dealing with. And I'm not saying anybody they should do it or shouldn't do it, but it's up to you. This is the magic of blockchain. It's the personal accountability, personal responsibility, but also the potential for personal gain and loss. That's all on you. That shouldn't be scary. That should be empowering. It's fantastic. And if you think that there's a fund that put in 500 million so you're safe, guess what? That's not correct. We just proved it. What happened just proved it. So the failures were someone that was doing things that were, I'll just use the term wrong, whether they were intentionally nefarious or accidentally started sliding down a slope doing bad things. None of that. I'm not going to speak to any of that, but we do know that at a certain point they had the debt over here and the revenues over here, and things didn't appear as they actually were. These were failures of a centralized system, and it was the decentralized system that found it out. And it is the decentralized system that I believe is the real value in this whole industry. And back to your comment about regulatory, that's a worldwide comment. You got the European Union looking at it. You've got a British Parliament looking at it. You got the U.S. government look at it. You have numerous regulatory agencies all looking at it separately, all wanting to do separate things. And that's probably good, by the way. I don't know if within the United States, having multiple bodies making decisions is a great thing, but that's a conversation for another day. But this is the peeling of the onion, and there's a lot of lessons here that we don't have to learn them all today, but I think it's important to look at it properly with an open mind to all of these things.
A point that Ron made, I just want to go back and emphasize, because I worry this is getting lost in the larger discussion, is, Ron made the analogy to Enron. And I think in so many ways, at least at a macro level, this is a very similar event. If you didn't live through Enron, it may be easy to overlook the fact that Enron is this scandal that played out over months. And every day there was this new drip of information, and slowly everybody put all the pieces together. And only after many months did we look back and realize the scale of what had happened. One of the things you kind of hear mentioned with this FTX story quite frequently is, my God, all of this sure unraveled fast. This happened at warp speed. And all of that is enabled by what Ron said. It's the transparency of the blockchain. And so I think if we can start to divorce ourselves from the idea that technology is ever going to prevent humans from doing nasty things, and we just accept nasty things are going to happen every once in a while, let's look at what this could have been had it played out a few decades earlier. And maybe we can't stop people from doing undesirable things, but you shine a brighter light in the space, and the corners in which they can hide become much smaller. And I think, in all the conversation and analysis of what's happened, that's one of the most overlooked points. I'm really glad to hear Ron make that one.
Yeah, I would say another good analogy in that regard would be, I don't blame the person who invented the vehicle for the high-speed chase, so to speak.
Right.
About to say the blockchain is an amazing tool, and it can be used for people for all sorts of things. And but at the end of the day, it played an integral role in helping us find out about this much faster and clear things up a lot too. And still a big supporter of blockchain here, as I will always be. But gentlemen, anything else you want to add?
Maybe it's just dovetailing on sort of the earlier comments. There is a piece of information, and I heard this recording. It's an audio recording. It was apparently a hidden recording in a briefcase. This goes back to the zeros, so it's about, call it 20 years ago approximately, and it was from an online gambling company, right? The beginning of playing poker online,
Mhm.
and it had to do with cheating, right? The company itself having some high stakes players, and they actually were able to see the poker hands, right? And that was kind of coming about. Well, someone in the room, very small room, recorded a meeting, and in that meeting, you can hear them talking about, quote unquote, the cover up, talking about the bad deeds as well, but then the cover up. Here's what we'll say, here's who we'll blame. It was listening to it, which I heard this within the last week since FTX happened, was really powerful in realizing that happened. So why am I bringing that up now with FTX? The person's voice in that recording, and this, I guess I want to say allegedly all the way through this, because I did hear the recording. I did talk to someone that was part of it when it happened, but haven't done my own research, so I reserve the right to be wrong, and I won't name names, but I kind of am, I guess. But one of the people on the recording that's actually, if this recording is true, a very bad actor, was running compliance at FTX 20 years later. And that's important. Like, we need to take things seriously. You know, if the right person was there, or the right department, or the right external, or whoever it was, they might have seen this first shoe draw and said, hey, you can't go down that road, it's bad, and it may never have happened. So we've got to fire on all cylinders. And Michael, I know I've said this to you before, it was no small leap for the crypto company to become a public company. We knew, especially back then, it's been a half a dozen years, we were early in the space, but we knew the space needed transparency. Being public does that. You know, everything is transparent. And I would suggest that FTX, had they been public, not that they could have been based on their business line, but had they been, this wouldn't have happened. Had they had the right compliance, this may not have happened. If you're hell bent to break laws, that's another thing. But sometimes people just do something wrong and they get in, and it's the trying to correct it that creates a snowball.
Yeah.
So I think those lessons are really, really important to hang on to when assessing anything in the space. Look at the people, look at the line of business, look at all the traditional things you've got to look at in any business. Don't ignore those, but then let's lean on the transparency of the blockchain and use that as full throttle.
Well said. Well, gentlemen, anything else before we go?
No, you know, in closing, I think, you know, this doesn't really represent the end of crypto. I've seen so many headlines this week, you know, the week that crypto died, or the crypto dream is dead. I think this is just very much a new chapter. And I think this kind of underscores something I've been saying for years. You know, Sam Bankman-Fried was this guy that everyone kind of called the white knight of crypto. The person out there in the space doing good and thinking about the greater good. And that didn't really end up being who he was. But the silver lining to that cloud is, okay, that position is still open, and so many other positions in this space are. And if that is what interests you, and you genuinely want to be that person, you don't just want to try and pull off the next scam, go plant that flag. It's hard to underscore how much opportunity is still open in this space. And again, just like the internet, we had plenty of black eyes 30 years ago. The internet didn't go anywhere, and I don't think the blockchain crypto space is. It's just, okay, how do we want to deal with this going forward? And the more voices, the more diversity, the more different people from different perspectives we can get, making contributions to that answer, the more I think we all win. So I think this is just a great time to be jumping in.
Perfect, gentlemen. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming on and sharing both your insights here today. If anyone else has anything they would like to add, share your opinions on it. Don't be afraid to reach out. Any closing words from you, Ron? Last things?
No, thank you very much, Michael. Really appreciate it.
Great chatting with you both. And please, everyone, have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Take care.